Hi, you're listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundram, and with my co-host,
Ashley Case,
we will be sitting down with our industry veterans to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry.
Today's guest is Martha Swift, a proven business development professional with more than 25 years of progressive experience in bid and proposal management, capture, business development, contracting, marketing, and client services for small and large businesses. She has led proposal efforts up to $300 million, spanning multiple industries, construction, aviation, health, IT, and engineering, for commercial, U.S., and foreign government clients for domestic and international projects. Martha is currently Senior Manager, Capture Advancement Team at Collins Aerospace. She has a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and is a Foundation Certified Proposal Management Professional through the Association of Proposal Management Professionals. Martha has served on the Chesapeake Chapter APMP Board of Directors since 2014 and has been the President and Chapter Chair since 2018. She co-hosts a monthly webinar for the chapter and enjoys interacting with other proposal professionals to keep up to date on the best industry practices. Residing in Maryland, Martha is married to her high school sweetheart. They have 19 U.S. Naval Academy sponsor sons, midshipmen, and they adopted through its sponsor program. They have one sponsor son who is currently at the Academy, one in flight school, and 8 who are actively serving in the Navy, Marine Corps, and Air National Guard. Martha jokes that her hobbies are the care and feeding of sailors, but she enjoys reading, baking, ballroom dancing, and traveling. Martha's friends and colleagues describe her as disarming, funny, thoughtful, assertive, and loyal. Welcome, Martha, to Scribble Talk. So great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
So Martha, if you've listened to the podcast before, you know that we love to start in the beginning. So we're curious, where were you born? Where did you grow up? And where did you go to school?
So I'm a little bit dull. I was born and raised in Maryland in the Baltimore-Washington corridor. I have lived in Maryland the majority of my life, except for a year that I went to the University of Delaware as a journalism student. I ended up graduating from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, but I did attend classes at the University of Maryland in its main campus.
Oh, wow. So kind of local to the DC-ish area.
Yeah, I'm about 45 minutes from DC, outside of Annapolis area. And I would say for anyone that's listening that has college-age kids, make them finish wherever they started.
Yeah, I think that's good advice unless they're starting at like maybe a community college and trying to move on to a four-year.
Yeah, well, I think my parents, when I was at the University of Delaware, it was an out-of-state tuition. So they were super excited when I said, I want to come home and go to UMBC. So it saved them a lot of money.
Oh, I can imagine. Out of state can be quite expensive.
Yeah. Well, and when I came back, so I was a journalism major, and because I had gone to the community college, gone to University of Delaware, gone to UMBC, I just said, how quickly can I get out of college? And so I changed my degree to it's a Bachelor of Arts in American Studies. And so they just looked at all of my credits and said, this is the one that makes the most sense. And most people go into teaching or social work. So I think it's really kind of funny that I ended up in business.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good segue into kind of my next question. So what was your first job outside of college?
So I actually was a retail manager for, it started off managing a little card shop for a family friend. I didn't even really look for a job when I first got out of college, and I loved it. I would say that's probably one of my favorite jobs that I had, because I managed the card store, managed personnel, but I was also doing the buying, and it was really satisfying to pick out things and then have people purchase it. So it's like a confirmation that you have good taste. So that was super fun, but I also wasn't making a ton of money. So I ended up temping. And while I was temping, they said to me, do you have any experience working with large documents? And I said, well, I wrote a thesis when I was in college. And they said, perfect. So they brought me in to work a proposal. And that was for a company called Oceaneering. And they taught me how to do proposals. And
wow.
It was a very long time ago and very different from how things are done now. Back in the day, we would do the desktop publishing. And when I say desktop publishing, we would use Word to create a file. And it was actually WordPerfect back then. And the programs weren't powerful enough to have images. So we would actually have photographs. We would print out the page, and then we would tape it onto the page in the appropriate place. And then we would photocopy them. And of course, it was black and white. It wasn't a color copier back then, but that's how long I've been doing proposals. That's when you can tell how long someone's been doing proposals is, were you doing hard copies with cut and paste? And when we say cut and paste, literally pasting something onto a page.
I love the stories of the literal cut and paste. And I wish I could go back in time and just, be a fly on the wall during those production processes.
Yeah, it definitely, you didn't see the sort of last minute changes that we do now. Up to the minute you can say, oh, let's change happy to glad, or, let's add a period. But when you are doing a very manual production, it's a different story.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes a blessing, but then sometimes, now if you catch something kind of critical, it's a lot easier to make those last minute changes.
It is. It's a lot easier. And it's a blessing and a curse because, as you're doing production, you really don't want to find any errors.
Totally. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your career timeline from there.
So one thing I just want to say is a career timeline doesn't have to be a straight trajectory. So I strongly encourage people to climb down from the ladder if they feel like it. So I started off doing proposals for Oceaneering in the 90s. And so then I started off as a proposal specialist and gradually worked my way up to a senior proposal specialist, proposal manager. When I went to Eric Incorporated, which is actually owned by Collins Aerospace, I became a proposal resource manager, and I had one person that worked for me. She was a proposal specialist. And so I had managed people in the retail space, but that was my first time starting to manage proposal specialists and mentoring them, teaching them how to do my job. And there was a lot of, working at Oceaneering was interesting because I did so many different things. They're, a large company, but the division that I worked for was fairly small. And so, I was doing trade shows and event planning and producing things for the annual report, as well as doing proposals. So that job was a lot of fun. And this is a total swerve to the side, but one of my favorite Oceaneering stories is we used to do the design and build of entertainment industry equipment. And so for Universal Studios, they built animatronic parts for the rides. So they did the Jaws ride at Universal. So we used to have a test tank that was outside the window of my office, and the shark that we built would leap out of the water, and with the attack face. And they had to do factory acceptance tests. So they would roll the shark back, they would roll the shark forward. So let it do what it's supposed to do through the course of its actions. And even though I saw it jump out of the water over and over again, if I was looking, it would make me jump. And I saw Jaws at a very young age and was very traumatized by the shark. And so to have that shark leap at me, and it went over and over and over again, but I still, every time it happened, I would shriek and then laugh at myself. So that was a really fun job. So anyway, worked for Eric Incorporated, and that was my first time managing proposals as well as staff. Went to CCE, which was technically a large construction company, but it was kind of a smaller company. And that job was director of bids and proposals. And so I managed a small staff there of proposal professionals, and eventually did make my way back to Eric Incorporated, which is Collins Aerospace, and had chosen to be kind of take a step back, stepped away from proposals for a while. When I came back to the company, to Collins, I was a principal business administrator. And so I was doing marketing strategy, looking at what the rest of the industry is doing. I actually was doing a little bit of project management, but I was doing proposals. And so as much as I kind of had taken a step back and tried to get away from proposals, it keeps drawing me back in. And it's something that I really enjoy doing. And I think you kind of have to be a little crazy to love proposals as much as those of us that work in it do. But there's just something so satisfying about that win, to, get the RFP, have the chaos of the startup, setting the template, implementing the strategy, and taking all that chaos and creating that beautiful finished product. And so, as proposal managers, we're basically managing the artifacts of the submission and turning it in and then winning, or even, maybe having the orals and coaching a team through the orals process. Just so satisfying when you win, though. It's lovely.
Absolutely. I think that's what makes this so worth it for many of us, right? That satisfaction of the win.
Yeah. And I have tried, because I talk about how I like the process, managing the process, and really enjoy managing a team of people who aren't direct reports. It's a little bit of a challenge because you're motivating people to do something that they don't want to do. That's not their day job. And their day job is, being a project manager or whatever else their priority is. And so it's my job to persuade them to do what I need to get done. And, you don't really have any power because they don't work for you. They're just a matrixed resource, but it's satisfying. I joke that I'm a corporate cheerleader. So my role is cheering people on and keeping them motivated so that we can all accomplish the same goal.
No, I love that, the role of a corporate cheerleader, but it is so true.
Well, and I laugh because I have people say to me, they're like, what do you do? And you say, I'm a proposal manager. And anyone that's sort of not in the corporate environment thinks that I'm arranging for people to ask someone to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you have to explain, well, if you have an RFP and, I always do like a cake analogy, if someone wants to have a cake and it would have a chocolate layer and, it's my job to, and so, you walk them through that. So now when people ask me, well, what do you do? And I'll say, I'm a cat herder. And, I'm trying to get all the cats to go in the same direction. And it cracked me up because my latest title is Senior Manager of CAT, the Capture Advancement Team. And so I manage, I'm a cat manager now. I'm not a herder, I'm a cat manager.
Oh my gosh, that is the greatest title I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, so much experience over the years. I'm sure that there are a few proposals that stick out in your mind. Are there any that you can share some of the details with us? Obviously nothing, proprietary, but the experience.
Okay. So I'm not going to say the company. It's not who I work for currently. I'm going to say it was in the beginning of my career. I worked a bid and I was up for, I want to say over 24 hours working on that bid. It was an important bid. It was a must win. And I'm old enough that I won't do those kind of hours anymore, but, I was in the office for 21 hours and I lost one of my colleagues who was working with me because she went to take a nap and I couldn't find her. She was asleep underneath the desk. And I looked in the office and I couldn't find her. And I didn't know which office she was in, but she had gone to sleep. And that bid always stood out in my mind as an example of why you need to have process. You need to know, what is our probability of win? Are we staffed correctly? Do we have the people that we need to execute the bid? Because hope is not a strategy. Everybody says that. Just because we want to win something, maybe we aren't positioned well. And if you're kind of having to make those heroic efforts, it doesn't speak well for the organization. And I've always said, bad bid, bad job. And so it's important that you're putting your best foot forward. If you are working with people who aren't sleeping, then, studies have proven that when you are overworked and sleep deprived, you might as well be drunk. And if you had a colleague that came to the office drunk every day, you'd report them. But we don't report our colleagues who are working till all hours of the night. So I think that it speaks to a lot to the maturity of an organization, how well we staff things, how well positioned we are to have resources, how mature our strategy is, how well prepared we were to get the bid and execute it. So clearly that company that I was working for at the time had none of those things. So that's one of the beauties of working for a company where we have such refined process. I'm not saying that we never have late nights. For whatever reason, sometimes that happens, but be diligent about doing your due diligence. Have a robust ability to assess your probability of win and to be staffed right to respond. Do you have the SMEs you need in place? Do you have content that you can leverage quite easily? And what sort of strategic planning have you done in your capture process to make it not an effortless, because all proposals by their very nature, because they're such abbreviated timelines, are challenging, but make sure that you're positioned well as you go into it.
Oh, definitely. That's such great advice there, and a nice kind of lesson learned takeaway from a story that I think so many people can resonate with, right?
Yeah. And I was in my early 20s when I did that. And at the time I was thinking, oh my gosh, I am never going to do that again.
Yeah, it's good you recognize that early. So when did you come across APMP as an industry body?
I was thinking about that. So I believe I joined, I know for sure I went to my first conference in 2005 in Phoenix, Arizona. And I went with one of my colleagues, and he's actually someone I always referred to him as my work husband. He and I are quite close and have been friends for a couple of decades. And he actually is on the board, the Chesapeake board with me. I recruited him several years ago. But I think he might have been the one that said to me, hey, we should do this. We should go to this conference. And I strongly encourage everyone, and I know not everybody can afford it. Not every company can sponsor people, but I strongly encourage people to attend BidCon. And, some people, older people who've been in the industry for a long time might be a little jaded and say, oh, it's similar content. But I disagree. And I think that APMP provides so much value through, they work very hard to come out with new and interesting topics. And as well as, some more of the remedial learning for some newer professionals. Mm-hmm. But I always walk away with something that makes my job easier to do or faster to do. And it's like going to a mental health day spa. You're with your people. You are talking to people who get what you do in a way that no one else in your life will understand. Your colleagues back at your office, they know what you do, but unless they are capture professionals, proposal professionals, they don't really understand all the pros and cons of what we do. And so I come back every time feeling refreshed. And there's always something that made my life easier. So my takeaway from this previous conference was, how you send emails for, say, like a red team review. You're trying to set up a red team review. And when, I knew how to do templates in Google, but I didn't know how to do a template in Outlook. And so one of the sessions that I attended, they taught us you can use quick parts to create a template for an email. And I can't tell you how much time that's going to save me, because I'm not going to have to say, okay, so on the XYZ proposal, I sent out this red team invite and I said QPR, and it's all there in your quick parts. And that is such a time saver. That was worth the price of admission right there.
Yeah, it's always great when you walk away with that one kind of tip or trick, and it's going to save you so much time in your day to day.
Yeah, and I was delighted. I ran into Bhaskar, and we've communicated over the years, and he's been a guest speaker for the Chesapeake chapter webinars, and so it was great to finally meet him in person.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to meet those colleagues that you've known virtually for who knows how long, and finally get to meet them in person. It's one of my favorite parts of the BidCons.
Yeah, or make connections. There were a lot of people that were presenting that said, hey, we're hiring. So, if someone's looking to change industry or change companies, there's opportunities there. And so that's another good reason. And of course, they offer I feel like I'm an ad for APMP, and they're not paying me. But you get the professional training. So I think it's really important to get certified, be taken seriously within your company by having those professional accreditation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So kind of pivoting from that a little bit, but staying in the APMP realm, tell us a little bit about your association with the APMP Chesapeake chapter and all the things that you do there.
So I was first approached, years and years ago, probably sometime between like 2000. Actually, you know what? I know exactly when it was. It was in 2011. I had just come back from probably the conference in Denver, and Allie, who I can't remember what her role was at the time, if she was a president or if she was doing membership, but she tried to recruit me. And at the time I thought, oh my gosh, I would love to volunteer for the chapter, but I just don't have the time. And I have a little bit of a people pleaser in me. So, I have to talk to myself when anybody asks me to do something. I have to say, let me think about it, because those yeses that you give can really make some sacrifices in your life that you maybe not necessarily want to do. So I thought about it and I said, not right now, but, keep me in mind. And so she did, and she pinged me again in 2014 and she said, how about now? And I said, well, what kind of a time commitment is it? And she explained what the time commitment was. And it wasn't, just a couple of hours a month. And so I joined the board of the Chesapeake chapter as the membership chair. And it's really satisfying. The main reason why I think everybody does it is it helps to keep your CEUs current, to keep your foundation, practitioner, professional certifications current. And 15 credits a year for being on the board is a great use of your time. So I think that was kind of a draw for me because I was newly certified and I needed to get those CEUs in. But Allie and Jessica and all the original founders of the Chesapeake chapter were just so fun. And, they make the meetings a good time. And eventually, the people that are volunteering tend to get burned out because, it's hard to get people, especially in our industry, to volunteer. Everyone's so busy. We're on such tight deadlines. I always say working on proposals is like being in constant final exams because, you've got a paper due Friday. So it's really hard to get people to step up and volunteer. And I think that's probably true of any volunteer organization. You've got a certain percentage of people that are doing the work. So the original founders have kind of stepped back and I stepped up. So, I've been the membership chair, I've been the secretary, and then I was recruited to be the president. I actually had been, one of my friends that had been on the board tried to nominate me for president a long time ago, but you have to have been on the board to hold the president and chapter chair seat. So in 2018, Doug Barth, who was our president at the time, stepped down and I stepped up. He is the vice chair and still very active. So it's great. One of the people who everybody on the board makes a difference and I really appreciate all of their service, but Brenda Chris came over, who I know you guys have interviewed probably previously. She used to be on the NCA chapter board, and I think she's a previous president for them. And she has really kind of reinvigorated our chapter. We went from having the occasional webinar or the occasional meeting, maybe one a quarter, to having one event every month. It's the first Wednesday, and she's really brought some fantastic speakers in. And has really made a difference on the board.
Oh, that's amazing. It's always good when you have that person that comes in and can make such a big difference. And, it's invaluable, the time that these volunteers put into the chapter boards. So love hearing about your chapter. All right. So before we move over into our surprise rapid fire questions round, can you tell us 3 things not many people know about you?
Oh, that is I think not many people know how much I love ballroom dancing. And when I was turning 40, I had always wanted to dance. My husband plays the guitar, but he's a guy that grew up in the 80s. He's not into dancing. And I really wanted to learn how to dance, and particularly doing the Latin dances. So cha-cha, tango, merengue, salsa. And I love it. I love ballroom dancing. And so I think most people don't know that I know how to tango. And 2 other things. I can make chocolate chip cookies without a recipe. I have that memorized. I like to write. I don't have a lot of time to do it. And when I say I like to write, I don't mean proposals. I like to do creative writing. And so I have probably like 5 fiction work in progress. I hope to one day get back to that. It's really hard to psych yourself up to do something creative when you stare at a computer all day. It's hard to psych yourself up to go stare at a computer again.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Well, those are some very cool things that I definitely didn't know. And I know Bhaskar is going to probably want to dig into those a little bit more before the super random part of the next round.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Martha. Nobody would believe you are a ballroom dancer. Next time in Orlando, we are going to step in.
I can't say I'm good at it, but I like doing it.
Don't worry. At least you know what you like. For many people, we don't even know what we like. Secondly, we don't want to share what we like, let alone, but that's good.
Well, one of my biggest struggles with ballroom dancing is I'm so used to being in charge. I'm, for lack of a better word, bossy, and I own that proudly. I don't think that's a negative thing. It's a good thing. But it was hard to not lead. And so to be able to follow someone else's direction, a tap on a shoulder, someone's hand on your waist, urging you in whatever choreography they want to do. It's hard to surrender the power, but I've slowly learned how to do that.
That's nice, Martha. Martha, and outside this, talk us through your other hobbies and interests.
Well, I love to bake. I am not ever going to be on a baking show, but I would say that food is definitely one of my love languages. And so when I want to show someone that I love them, I'll bake for them. I have friends that, and again, these are not fancy masterpieces, but they taste delicious. I love to make cakes, cupcakes, cookies. Baking is such an exact science. Unlike cooking, where you're throwing in a pinch of this, a dash of that, you have to have the ingredients measured. Otherwise, you can really kind of mess it up. So it's exciting when you can take something and say, you know what, I really liked that amaretto cake that I had at such and such place, and to kind of play with a recipe and make something taste good. Of course, now we've got the internet and we can find a recipe for anything. But back when I started baking, probably in my 20s, I mean, obviously I probably started baking when I was like 8, but really kind of doing it for my own pleasure in my 20s. I sort of perfected an amaretto cake, and, playing with how much water I'm using versus how much amaretto I'm using, or putting a twist on a frosting. And so, I can't say that they're beautifully decorated. I've got a colleague that I work with at Collins who can do any sort of cake you want. I mean, just amazingly beautiful cakes. But my cakes may not be as artistic as his, but they taste fantastic. I am a really good baker. It's something I'm very proud of.
Totally. While you were talking, all I was thinking is the cake.
Yeah. I'm going to have to make some chocolate chip cookies after this chat. That sounds good.
Send these pictures, Martha.
I will.
Thank you, Martha. Martha, talk us about this 19 U.S. Naval Academy sponsored children.
Okay, so when I was, I guess in my early 30s, I had a cousin who was living in Las Vegas at the time. He comes from a fairly large, prolific branch of my family. My cousins have a lot of cousins, and each one was, one of 7 kids. And then each one of those had 4 more. And I had a cousin that was living in Las Vegas, and she said to me, our son is coming to the Naval Academy. And I said, we live very close to the Naval Academy. He can, come over whenever he wants. And I said, well, please let him know. And she said to me, well, if you want to see him, you're going to have to sponsor him. And I said, well, I don't know what that means. So I called the Naval Academy and talked to the head of their sponsor program. And I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, well, these kids are coming in, and it's a college experience for them, but they're in the military. And so there's a lot of, their day's very regimented. They're told when to eat, when to sleep, when to study, when to do their physical training. And they kind of need a place to go that's safe, that they can, let their hair down, for lack of better words, just be themselves. They have to stay in their uniforms, so they can, it's either the uniform of the day, or they can change into what they call their PT gear, their physical training gear. But they have to stay in uniform and represent the military. And so, they're just looking for a home away from home, basically. And they're really only allowed that first year to be away from the academy from, say, noon to midnight. And that's kind of an unusual experience for college students. Usually most kids going to university are, that's when they really let down and get their freedom on. But, they're basically in an extended boot camp that first year of their training. So I got into the sponsor program because my cousin Jeffrey came to the academy. And if you're a good sponsor mom and dad, you end up having, multiple people show up. And so from his year, I really only officially sponsored my cousin Jeffrey, but I had 4 other midshipmen, and then it just kind of grew from there. And then my cousin Stephen came to the academy in 2011. And my husband and I don't have children of our own. And so it was fantastic for both of us, because it gave us an opportunity to parent without responsibility. So I was able, or I should say I am able, since we are actively sponsoring, but, teaching them things about life, like, how to make guacamole dip, or how to do things like how to use a stud finder in the wall to hang up a picture, and just things that if they were back amongst their own families and parents, they would get that. But just being a place for them to get away and relax, not to have to be so rigid in their structure. And they do a lot of, I always joke that they're a little bit like babies, because that first year, because they can't drive, they're not allowed to have cars. And all they want to do is eat and sleep. So, and because it was my cousin and his friends that were at our house, I used to spend $400 a week on groceries, which, obviously during inflation now, it's easy to spend $400 a week on groceries. But back then, when it was just the two of us, I probably would spend maybe like 150. But I'd bake cookies and make sure that I had all sorts of good food for them to eat. But it's been great. I have, remained contact obviously with my cousins, but with all of our boys. And so now they've got kids of their own and wives. And it's great to have these men who have become such an important part of our lives. And it's been a real gift for us, having those relationships. It's been great. And I have to say, from a career perspective, we spend so much time doing what we do. It's been a clever way for me to be able to parent, but without responsibilities, just driving them to the mall or to the airport, but I don't have to take them to soccer practice every day. They've got their own lives and they're adults. So I got potty trained humans from the age 18 up.
That's so beautiful, Martha. Thank you. I think, as you rightly said, parenting, going and sharing a lot more with the people who's not born for you and giving them, making them grow, making them be able kids, able citizens of the country. It's unbelievable. I think a lot of respect to you and your husband for that. So that takes us nicely into our random rapid fire question round in honor of Howard. Not this is the month Howard passed away a few years ago, so it's a memory for him. But anyway, we have this as a round for him, for his fun, for his cracking jokes. There's no right or wrong answer, Martha. So anything comes to your mind is the answer. Are you ready? Let's crack on.
Yes.
So, what do you get every time you go for grocery shopping?
I would say cream, eggs, bread, bacon. We eat a lot of bacon. Yogurt, cheese. Always buy cheese. I have a friend's dog that comes by every day for his cheese snack.
Nice. What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
Turn my alarm off.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
If it's a non-alarm day, I actually rotate my ankles right and left. My mom says that's good for stability as you get older, is to make sure that you have good ankle strength.
That's interesting. What's the most interesting place or the beautiful place that you have ever been to so far?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would say in the United States, Sedona, Arizona. The Red Rocks, anyone that's in the United States, I strongly encourage you to go there. It's such a magical place. But I can't think of any place that I've been that I didn't find something enjoyable about it. I mean, Singapore was amazing. So that's hard to say, but in the US, Sedona, Arizona.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that, Martha. So Martha, you like cooking, you like baking. Do you remember any kitchen fails?
Oh gosh, a million. I don't have diagnosed ADD, but my husband says that I suffer from short attention span cooking, and I frequently burn things. So, like if I don't set a timer, I will forget that I have cookies in the oven and I will burn them. So it's a lot easier now that my house is an open concept because I'm never that far from the kitchen. But yeah, I get that from my mom. My mom used to burn toast all the time. I've also, forgotten ingredients, like forgot to put sugar in something, or made a meatloaf that was too soupy. I could go on and on about my cooking fails.
I think we all make errors, but the important thing is you like baking. That's the main thing. That's great, Martha. So Martha, if we could have a song that play out every time you enter a room, what song would you choose?
Oh, that is a good question. I'm kind of into right now a song by Lizzo called About Damn Time. So that's my latest favorite. I like, and my husband was teasing me yesterday because he came back into the house after he'd left and I had the music blaring and I was dancing around the house and he said, I didn't know you do a dance party. And I said, I usually do in the morning.
It's quite nice. So what's the most that you have ever spent on something you absolutely did not need at all?
Oh gosh. I don't tend to buy things that I don't need, but I like nice things. And I bought a purse once that was a Marc Jacobs bag. And I want to say it was like $850. And I thought my husband was going to die when he saw how expensive it was. But I tell you, that purse lasted me for 10 years. It was beautifully made. So it was completely worth the money.
Totally. I know your husband will be listening and he will not agree to this anyway, but that's okay, Martha.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I make good money. So there would be no chastisement from him, but I think I got raised eyebrows when I told him how much that was. But I had a girlfriend that worked at Nordstrom at the time, and she'd say, how often do you use your purse? And I said, every day. And she said, isn't your time worth, and I think she said like $1.50 a day or whatever it was. She said, how long do you typically use a purse? And she completely rationalized it for me.
Wow, you're such a logical friend.
Yeah.
So as they say, somebody once told me proposals is a logical decision, logical justification of an emotional decision.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's good. So do you remember the very first band you ever saw live?
I think it was the Cars. Showing my age.
Perfectly fine. So what takes you out of your comfort zone, Martha?
Oh gosh. I am terrified of heights. So, and my husband has no fear whatsoever. And I can get squeamish just looking down, looking down a set of stairs. So, I would say anytime that we go any place where there's heights, so, walking up a hill or, looking over a cliff, that definitely takes me outside of my comfort zone. But my comfort zone is pretty small, so it wouldn't take me a lot to get out of my comfort zone.
That's nice. So what's a dream you have never said out loud, but now today you can share it?
I think that, well, I don't think I have a dream that I haven't said out loud. I just kind of make excuses. I would like to be a best-selling author of women's fiction, women's literature. And I just don't make the time to do it.
I think you should.
Yeah, I have a couple of really good friends who chase me on the regular. You should be writing. You should be writing. Why aren't you writing? And, I used to say, oh, well, I don't have a computer, or, and my husband said, you've got a pen and paper, stop making excuses.
That's good, Martha. Martha, when was the last time you wrote a letter to someone?
Probably 3 weeks ago. I love sending birthday cards. I'm hit or miss. I mean, you might get a birthday card from me one year and then never hear from me again. But I sent out quite a few cards a few weeks ago. And unfortunately, I'm also at that age where my friends are experiencing loss. So I've written a lot of handwritten letters to friends who've lost their parents recently.
That's good.
I actually have a graduation card on my desk right now and a sympathy card on my desk right now that I need to write. That's
quite nice. I think these days sending emails, messages, or even e-cards, etc., likes, loves, even the comments is the maximum that we receive from people. But it's quite nice of you, Martha. Please do continue to share your love. It's good. Martha, who are the people who have been the most influential in your life and career?
I think in my life, obviously my mother and my father, they've given so much of my foundation to me. I get my humor and my mom would claim my humor, but my dad loves to tell jokes. And I definitely get my work ethic from my father. My dad was a very hard worker. He used to, on Saturday mornings, he'd clap his hands and say, "Up and at 'em, ladies, up and at 'em." And, there was no sitting around watching cartoons until you had your chores done. So my sister and I both have exemplary work ethics as a result of that. My mom has never met a stranger. I think that I get a lot of my personality traits from my mom. Her mother, who we called Nana, was a great prolific writer and a painter. And so I think that she shared that with all of her grandchildren. I think we all have some sort of creativity in us. And she used to say to me, "Martha, you need to write every day." And my sister does. My sister journals, and it's something that I'd like to change about myself. As far as my career, I had, and unfortunately both of them have passed away, one recently. I had a really good friend named Linda Hartwig, who I met through ARINC in the early 2000s. And Linda gave the best career advice. And the best advice she ever gave me, I think, was never put anything on your resume that you don't want to do. If there's something that you hate about your job, why would you put that on there? And I just think that was the best advice. And my other mentor was a guy named John Bajas. I met him when I worked at Oceaneering, and he had joined the Navy during World War II when he was 17 years old, and eventually went to the Naval Academy. And he was just such a fantastic business development guy. And he taught me the fine art of nice nagging, being able to persuade people to do what you need to do.
That's nice, Martha. So much love and abundance in your life. Wish you continue to add a lot more people into your life. Share your love. That's beautiful. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
Martha, what's that one personal trait you like the most about yourself?
I think my sense of humor. I like my dad. I like hearing jokes. I love to laugh. I like to make other people laugh. My latest thing that I say that to make people laugh is I'll say to people, "I'm slightly more active than a house plant." And that usually gets a laugh. My doctor didn't think that was funny, but everybody else I tell thinks it's funny.
That's it. That's it. In addition to sharing love, making them happy, it's even more of a trait. Nice, Martha. Please do continue to do that. Martha, you have been in the industry for 25 plus years. You have seen a lot. What's the one common myth about our profession that you want to debunk?
That you have to stay late to work on proposals. I used to work for a company that was in the healthcare industry, and the president of the company would make us keep the pizza boxes that we had in our war room because he didn't think you weren't working hard if you weren't up and eating dinner in the office every night. And, I circle back to, if you are pursuing appropriate opportunities that are in your wheelhouse, that you've got the right staff, the right solution, the right strategy, you don't have to put in long nights every night.
That's a great advice, Martha. Well, I hope that thing changes as we progresses. Martha, what's that one advice you would like to share to the bid and proposal profession?
I would say, circling back to what I said in the beginning, your career path does not have to be a straight line. If you're not happy doing what you're doing, it's okay to step off the ladder and walk around on the ground for a while. I took a step back in my career. I went from being a director to at some large businesses that were smaller than the one I'm at currently, and and I even took a pay cut at one point in my career to go back to a company that I really loved. To me, it's important to like and respect who I work for, and to be proud of what we're selling. And I've got that right now in spades. I love my boss, love my team, and I'm really proud of what we do. And, we spend so much time doing what we do. You have to like it. It's always going to be work, but and maybe you're not going to love what you're doing, but if you love the people you're working with day in and day out, and you are proud of what you're selling, it makes all the difference. I guess that was a two-part, take a step back. Life is like a cha-cha. You move forward, you move back, side to side.
I think you nailed it, and everything happens for a reason, and you just need to do what's right at that moment, and then obviously you can get back to it. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Martha. Martha, we talked about your early life, career, your passions, hobbies, interests, Chesapeake chapter, APMP, Bitcoin, people in your life and career, a few random questions, one advice. Is there any part of your life or career that we missed, Martha, or is there anything else you would like to share before we end the podcast?
I love numbers. And when I was, say, 40, I really wished that I had a finance degree. And at the time I thought, oh, I don't want to go back to school now. I'm making so much money and I don't want to have to start over. And so that's something I think I might just pursue for fun is maybe going back to school or just even taking some finance classes, because I do love numbers.
I think you should. In my career, I think when I see, maybe because I had an engineering background, then I did the chartered accountancy in the number, finance, master's in finance, law degree, project management, proposal. I went through all these things, double PhDs and stuff, but it's all because at some point curiosity kicks in, and then certain people tend to think, you don't know this because you are not qualified.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's an external nudge, sometimes it's internal stuff. When both connects at the right time, I'm sure you're going to do that, but let it happen very quickly. But
yeah, and I would encourage anybody who's offered travel as part of work, do it. There's some trips that I turned down at the time. And I look back and think, I can't believe that I didn't go to South America or Brunei or any of the other places that I could have as part of my career, just because of what was going on in my life, or not thinking that I could carve out the time to get away to go do that.
Totally. That's a great advice, especially now when that is a challenge to get back to work. How many days, how long, to actually taking people outside the country for work. I think gradual journey, I think, Martha. But let's see. Thank you for sharing, Martha. Martha, before we close, what's something that you're looking forward to in the immediate future?
In the immediate future, I am taking a little trip by myself to go to the beach. And, it feels a little selfish when you plan to do something like that, but I just thought I needed a little me time. So I'm super excited about that. I love to travel. Love to travel.
That's brilliant, Martha. Keep traveling, keep your curiosity, keep smiling, keep sharing love, make people laugh. Do as you always do. Thank you so much, Martha, for joining today. It's been an absolute privilege to have you.
Thank you.
On behalf of me and Ashley, wish you all the good health and happiness. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay safe, and hope to see you very soon again.
Hopes to see you as well. Thank you.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchyscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, Don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundram,
signing off.